Welcome on in, and I want to say welcome on in to Congressman Matt Van Epps, 7th Congressional District. And Congressman, great to have you on. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be on. And as you know, you were the very first interview we did back in June, and always great to be on.
Are you getting used to people calling you Congressman?
No, not at all. I prefer Matt. And no, it's but let me just start by saying what a just complete honor. It's just I'm so honored and humbled by being here. So thankful for those that sent me here, and it's not lost on me. It's something that I think about every single day as we come into the office and I look at the Capitol. It is truly a pinch me moment, and that's a feeling that won't go away. And I'm just I understand the magnitude of this responsibility, and I'm so grateful for everyone that has sent me here, and we're working hard already.
Well, you guys were up late last night, I guess. You there in the House of Representatives. You passed a new version of the SAVE Act. So,
we did.
So tell me about that experience, and tell me tell me what's in the SAVE Act.
Yeah. So now it's the Save America Act.
Yep.
So Safeguard American Voter Eligibility America Act. And so this one is really straightforward. This is about protecting our elections, our federal elections. And so it does a few things. It requires any voter to show a photo ID when they cast a ballot. So absentee and mail-in can attach a copy of their ID to the ballot, so that's taken care of. It requires states to obtain documentary proof of U.S. citizenship in person when registering an individual to vote. So also pretty straightforward. And it requires states to check for non-citizens and ineligible registrants on their rolls monthly. So this one is a very straightforward, protecting our elections. When we think about this, it's about not just securing elections, but restoring trust, protecting against foreign influence. And you think about all the times an ID is required. Buying a beer, picking up a prescription, renting a car, boarding a flight. You go through, there's many others. And across the country, voting in American elections has not been one of those. So this one is pretty clear cut, and excited and honored to have voted in support of that.
You know, it is interesting. So there was a SAVE Act that was voted and passed months ago in 2025. And now the new SAVE Act is, as you said, the Save America Act, with all of these just common sense. I mean, this stuff is just, and I realize that I'm a, frothing at the mouth conservative, and I want a credible and fair and free elections. But all of this stuff does seem to be common sense. And what do you think is going to happen in the Senate, though? Because the problem that we have is that the Senate, because this is like a stricter version of the original version. The original version, as you know, it was only providing ID to register to vote. Now, in the Save America Act, they are saying that you need ID to actually vote every time. Love about the voter rolls and all that other stuff. Is there a feeling in Washington, D.C., generally speaking, though, that the Senate is not going to be able to get this done?
Well, it's a great question, Dan, and I think it's a question we're having on a number of things to include, and I hope we talk about it too. But on the DHS appropriations, there's a real question there. I think it was one Democrat that crossed over and voted with us last night with Republicans on this issue, and this is a better than 80-20 issue. There's a Gallup poll from October of 24 that 84% of people favor providing photo ID at their voting places, 83% providing proof of citizenship. I mean, this is what the American people want. And it's really staggering to me that Democrats are not jumping on board to support this. To your point, this is very common sense. This is about election integrity. It's the fundamental premise of our republic. And we should get this right.
Well, I hope the Senate does the right thing, but I also understand that there's a lot of nuance to the discussion, especially when we talk about eliminating the filibuster and all those kinds of things. But let's go ahead. You mentioned DHS funding and all that, so let's go ahead and segue to that, because you do have this attempt to tie DHS funding to the SAVE Act and some of these other things. What do you think is going to happen with DHS funding? Because clearly the DHS does need to be funded.
Absolutely. And so the president is the negotiator in chief, and he is working with the Senate right now on that. To step back, zoom out for just a minute. This appropriations bill, 12 appropriations bills, 96% of the government is funded right now. And one of the things that we were very interested in working on behalf of is getting back to regular order, so that we pass appropriations bills, then we have a budget, and we use the budget to pass, authorizations bills, we have a budget, and then we pass the appropriations bills. And Tom Cole and the appropriators did amazing work to get those through. So 96% of the government is funded, and that sets Trump administration policies and priorities, decreases overall spending, and shifts priorities to areas that make a lot of sense. So we're moving in that direction, not fully there yet, but this is a step in that direction. And we have to fund DHS. I'm on the Homeland Security Committee, which I'm grateful to be on. And it's not just about ICE. This is about FEMA. It's about Secret Service, Coast Guard, Border Patrol, critical functions, TSA, critical functions that protect America. And so we've got to get this right. I'm learning more too about Senate procedures, which I'm not an expert on. But there's a whole lot of work going on there, and there's discussion about the talking filibuster. But I think Thune said that it would be the first time in 100 years that process would be taking place, and I don't think they're there yet. But that's part of what they're working on to get this done. We've got to get it done.
Yeah, we do, for a lot of different reasons. DHS, does need to be funded, and I think that they're already going to be funded based on past budgets. But part of the problem that we have right now is that we do have people on the left, and they are just acting so incredibly crazy. One of the things that I thought was interesting, there's a story actually in the news today that I'm going to do here in a little bit about how there's even been more threats. A guy was actually arrested in Portland, Oregon, because he was getting ready to kill a bunch of ICE agents, and they got him just in the nick of time. But right now, we live in a country where we have politicians in the House of Representatives and the Senate, local level as well, who are essentially advocating for or supporting people who are calling for violence against ICE. And so we are living in just a really weird time where elected officials are essentially advocating for violence based on their rhetoric against law enforcement. And I know somebody who is obviously been in the military. You have to take this personally, especially, somebody who has been in the National Guard. I think you're still in the National Guard, right?
Yeah, that's right. Still in the National Guard. I do take it personally, Dan. And we had a hearing this week, an oversight hearing in the for the Department of Homeland Security that included ICE, CBP, and USCIS. And I think there was a couple. My takeaways. I've several takeaways, but a couple of those is first and foremost, I'm confident in the leadership in the Trump administration for what they're doing to protect our country and our communities. And their professionals are working really hard. These folks that were there, so Rodney Scott, Commissioner of Border Patrol, Todd Lyons, the Director for ICE, and Joseph Edlow of USCIS, these folks have spanned multiple administrations, going back to the Clinton era. So these are people that have worked in Democratic administrations, through the Trump administration. And, a couple of the points that they made is they've not seen it this bad ever. And, they're real professionals. And the rhetoric that came out of the Democrats in this hearing was absolutely inexcusable, to include, and you may have talked about this earlier this week, but MacGyver out of New Jersey, I literally I was texting my team for some coordinating things for a follow-on meeting, and I literally dropped my phone when I heard her line of questioning. And she was basically asking if Director Lyons was going to go to hell, and she was criticizing religion and just the most absurd things. And it's that kind of rhetoric that is absolutely inexcusable, that puts law enforcement at risk. and we cannot stand for it.
Well, coming up, we've got Congressman Matt Van Epps joining us. Locally, you have some very harsh words for NES, and it's almost like get in line, but going to get your take on what I would call the abysmal failure of NES. All right, so Congressman, I know that there's been a lot of people who have been very critical of what has happened with NES. They are saying, and the mayor is saying, oh, we're going to get to the bottom of this. I don't know. I'm a little cynical. What do you think?
Yeah, so let me start. So we sent a letter to the mayor. We sent a letter to NES, and I'll get to that. I'd love to just give a quick update, too, on the overall process. And this was my top priority for the team. All the folks in district staying in touch with our 14 counties. A whole lot of folks suffered in this, and we got out and saw, we went to 6 different counties when we could actually get out and travel, went to TEMA, several nonprofits, talked to the TVA CEO, visited EMAs in 5 of those counties. And, seeing people come together in a really hard time, that's what Tennesseans do. And it was great to see. We are staying in contact with all those counties and with the White House. So we signed onto the letter requesting the president to do the major disaster declaration, which he did. Public assistance, which provides support to local governments, utilities, certain nonprofits, has been approved for a number of counties. We're staying in touch with the White House about individual assistance that provides additional funding to individuals. And so that's under federal review right now. But, I think to your earlier point, a whole lot of questions about it, and we need to dive into this, about NES's performance here and what the mayor's office and team could have done better. And so our letter to the mayor outlined a very prescriptive, detailed after-action review format that we would love to see incorporated. We've asked for a briefing on the situation that we sent it a week ago in 2 weeks. So we're hoping that briefing happens in about a week or so, okay, so that we can ask really pointed questions and get to the bottom of it. At NES, in our letter there, I would, say it was more critical than the one sent to the mayor, although, I think we were being very pointed in both. But, we want to know about these funding priorities. We want to know about vegetation management and where that went. We want to know about the over 100 DEI trainings that have happened and what those priorities and funding look like, because this is about accountability. So many people suffered. We've got to get back on track. We've got to learn from this. We've got to hold people accountable, and we've got to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, that is absolutely the truth, and hopefully they're learning from their mistakes. I interviewed somebody from the Metro Council yesterday, and one of the questions that I asked was that I asked if she was confident that this group of board members for NES would even be able to implement whatever changes that need to be made, and she said absolutely not. So. Would you come back on WTN once you have that briefing with those folks and let us know how it went? Absolutely, Dan. I would love to do that. Would be absolutely honored to come back on and talk that. And then a bunch of the other issues we're working. There's a whole lot we're working on, and just excited to be here fighting on behalf of the Tennessee 7th, and very grateful to be here. Very good. And give me your, I know you've been to Washington, D.C. before, so part of what I wanted to ask you was, President Trump had the National Guard in Washington, D.C. I believe that he still has some troops there, although there is a story from the Daily Mail that says that President Trump is said to be withdrawing National Guard troops from blue cities after the Supreme Court ruled against him temporarily back in December. They're saying that the president is quietly removing some of these National Guard troops from blue cities. I'll get into that here in a little bit. But have you noticed a marked difference between, the Washington, D.C. that you knew before Donald Trump and now? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I've just on a couple of nights as I've been walking back and out of the office, I've seen different groups of National Guard soldiers that are out and about. And I told them, thank you. Thanks for being out here doing what they're doing. But it absolutely provides additional
protections and securities, and they're great. Serving in the National Guard, I know these soldiers. They're great professional soldiers, committed to their states and country, and I'm very proud of the work that they're doing. And the results speak for themselves. Overall murder and crime down in D.C. And I think there's a really important piece to this, Dan, and that's when we look at Memphis. Memphis is a great example of this going right when Governor Lee and state officials work with federal law enforcement in a cooperative way, and we see what's happening. Their overall crime is down. I think it's 40. The murder rate is down 47%.
Yeah.
In Memphis, overall violent crime is down 30%. And I talked about this in the hearing, and it was one of the points that I wanted to make in the Homeland Security hearing, is that this is what we should take as best practices across the country on ways to work with the president. And when the governor has done a great job leading on this, and it's a great example. And I'm proud of the work that the president has done to bring law and order across our country, and excited to be fighting on that behalf.
All right, so are you hanging out with like Tim Burchett and Scott Desjardins and some of these other folks? Are they kind of giving you the tour, showing you the ropes and all that?
All of the Tennessee delegation has been so helpful to just understand all kinds of things. From that very first moment about how to vote, it was being on the House floor for the first time and not having the card the electronic voting card. So they showed me how to walk up to the front and fill the paperwork out and submit the votes, which was very helpful. But the entire Tennessee delegation has been just really great and helpful. Chuck Fleischman has been great. He's my designated whip. So when bills get whipped, he comes around with the card and gets my position on it, and is part of the whole whip process, and he's great. So very thankful for the entire delegation.
Really interesting. All right, well, we'll talk again soon. Congressman Matt Van Epps joining us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, and really looking forward to hearing a follow-up on their conversations with NES, because I think that for a lot of folks, they are still looking for answers on the absolute train wreckery of NES. So I'm glad he's looking into that. Dan Mandis here in Nashville's Morning News. Super text line is open, 615-737-9986. By the way, Joan, are you going to go to the State of the Union? It's going to be on February 24th.
Yeah.
In Smyrna. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Is it Legacy Steakhouse?
Legends.
Legends Steakhouse. God.
You might want to know the place.
You know what? I'm just going to say this. Back in the old days, you used to have copy right on the wall.
Yes.
They don't do that here.
Which
anymore.
I hate.
Anyway, whatever. So,
I got to check my social schedule.
Is that what you got to do, Joan?
She might have other obligations.
Anyway, so it's going to be me, Chris, Matt, and of course Chad. We're all going to be there, and we're all going to sit there and watch the State of the Union. I'm assuming Murphy Show is going to be on the air beginning at 3, and we're going to go all the way till 8 o'clock, State of the Union then, of course, and I'll be fleeing off to bed probably.
So your sleep schedule's going to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's yeah. When we do these events, I'm always a wreck the next day, but I love meeting folks that listen to the radio station. So I love talking to you, and I'm really looking forward to this event. Smyrna. And that's going to be on February 24th.
To Joan and Sam, Dan will be a mess February 25th.
I'm totally playing Wreck Me by Tom Petty.
Yeah, we can have fun with this.
Sure. And it's usually the next day. I'm so incredibly tired, but whatever. It's all good and well.
Do you want me to have a spare Red Bull handy?
A couple, actually, would be fine.
Or just one 24-ouncer if I can find it.
Yeah.
They don't make those anymore.
Anyway, moving right along. So go. Tickets, you can find tickets, 997WTN.com. Somebody sent me a note yesterday. They said, Mandis, at this event, I want to talk to you.
Uh-oh.
And I said, why? It's not that I don't mind, talking to folks, but he sounded a little challenging, and that's fine. I've been challenged before at these things. If somebody wants to come up and say, you were wrong on this, and this. It's like, okay, that's fine. But here's my rule, Joan. Is this an appropriate rule? You can only play one you're wrong card. So you can't come up and say that I've been wrong on like 15 different things and here's why, because I like to talk to a lot of people. So if I've been wrong on everything, you've got to give me your best shot. Like whatever that first wrong is, the biggest wrong that I've been wrong about.
Yeah.
My wrongiest wrong is what you need to lead with. Anyway, moving right along. Nasty anti-ICE comments across the country have now led to this. I don't know if you saw this, Joan.
Uh-oh.
I did mention this to Congressman Matt Van Epps earlier in the radio broadcast. A guy was found in Oregon. He had his manifesto. He was going to kill ICE agents. Need some audio. So, we hear these stories all the time. And luckily, they caught the guy. He was like 1 day away. He was 1 day away from going down to the local ICE facility and just start shooting men and women members of ICE. And so you've got all of this anti-ICE rhetoric that has been out there. As a matter of fact, Congressman Van Epps was even talking about how abhorrent the rhetoric is, not only on ICE, but also Border Patrol, law enforcement, generally speaking. A lot of this stuff is just absolute BS. But I do want to give one example of many that I could pull from. This is Eric Swalwell grilling Todd Lyons, the acting leader of ICE. Listen.
A couple nights ago, I met with a woman who works as a cashier at a grocery store, and I told her I was coming to see you. And she said, will you ask him? But she said, when I get off my shift around midnight and I walk through the parking lot to my car, she said, if somebody rolls up in an unidentified van and gets out wearing all black and their face is covered and they don't have any identification and they ask me to get into the van, how do I know who they are? How does she know, Mr. Lyons?
So here we are once again with the ICE agents should not be wearing masks bit, but, the left is saying, well, they're disappearing people. They're not. The reality is that the reason why ICE is wearing masks is because of the story that I just told you about, with that guy being arrested because he wanted to go and kill ICE agents. That is one of the reasons why they wear masks. So people like Eric Swalwell and the Democrats, they want them doxxed so that guys like the dude in Oregon can find them and kill their families. And so, by the way, as far as the question goes, this was Todd Lyons' response.
How does she know if they're an ICE agent or bad guys?
Sir, ICE agents have identifiable placards on their uniforms as well as their badges representative, but you won't see ICE agents rolling through the parking lots and just snatching someone up. ICE does intelligence-driven, targeted enforcement operations.
Oh, no. According to the left, the good, fine members of ICE are disappearing people. So dumb. Everyone knows that we have seen attacks against ICE. It's increased. Now, they say by over 3,000%. I want you to think about that. Over 3,000%. That is how much we have seen attacks increase against ICE. Yet Eric Swalwell is out there slopping that crap again to the mainstream media, who will no doubt lap it up. And so this guy in Portland, he was going to attack ICE with apparently a Molotov cocktail. He was going to get an AR-15. He also said that he wanted to, by the way, behead ICE agents as well. Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that the lies and the rhetoric of jackholes on the left like Swalwell is going to help that situation? Obviously not. So, these kinds of actions against ICE agents and Border Patrol and law enforcement, generally speaking, they're not going to stop. And the amazing thing is that Democrats, they don't even seem like they want to or even are considering sort of moderating their rhetoric. As a matter of fact, part of what they're doing, obviously, is they're simply ratcheting up the vitriol.
Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
I want to play that one more time because Swalwell actually called these ICE agents killers. Listen to this again.
Will you stand with the kids who you're supposed to protect, or will you side with the killers bringing terror to our streets? Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
I mean, here's the thing. Eric Swalwell. I would have to ask him, what do you call the people that ICE is trying to arrest? Would you call them killers too? Or no, you can't bring yourself to call the illegal alien drug dealers and the killers. You can't bring them. You can't bring yourself to call them killers, can you? But you'll call the members of ICE killers. That's Eric Swalwell.
Isn't that the guy that slept with the Chinese spy?
That's Fang's boyfriend.
He didn't resign?
No, he did not, as a matter of fact. You know, one of the things as you look at this, because he calls the men and women of ICE killers, bringing havoc to the streets. In this whole thing, Swalwell ends up bringing up Alex Preddy and Renee Good, completely leaving out their own actions, by the way, that led to their deaths. What he does, he says that, the killers of Alex Preddy and Renee Good, leaving out, again, what led up to their deaths. And there's always a couple of different sides to a story, clearly. And it is interesting because even Donald Trump has said, we've all said, that those two did not deserve to die. But the other side cannot admit that they put themselves in positions that could and did lead to their deaths.
The same Eric Swalwell that endorsed a now convicted child pedophile in New Hampshire? That Eric Swalwell.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, there's a whole list of stupidity from Eric Swalwell. So the left, part of what they keep doing is they just keep ratcheting up this rhetoric. And sadly, they don't care about the attacks on ICE skyrocketing like the one that luckily was thwarted in Portland. But over 3,000%. These attacks against ICE have increased, or, of course, attacks on other law enforcement as well. And this is Hakeem Jeffries saying the same darn thing.
ICE agents should conduct themselves like every other law enforcement agency in the country, as opposed to running around mass thugs, in many instances, unleashing brutality on law-abiding American citizens.
So, I mean, the Democrats clearly are not going to stop. I just saw, and I didn't catch all of it. Maybe, Sam, you can find it for me on the X machine. But Harry Enton was on CNN. This won't surprise you, Joan. Harry Enton on CNN talking about how Democrats have become far more liberal over the last, many years, as opposed to where they were back in 1999 when they were more conservative or moderate. The average Democrat today, if I'm interpreting what I saw on CNN appropriately and correctly, the average Democrat isn't even really a Democrat anymore in the traditional form. They are just frothing at the mouth, progressive liberals. And I just played you two examples, Hakeem Jeffries and Eric Swalwell. And, what they stand for is just as bad as their rhetoric, right? I mean, they stood for, 4 years of Joe Biden and open borders, leading to the problems that ICE and Donald Trump is trying to solve. And so their policies are just as abhorrent as the things that they're saying about ICE. And it's tragic. Rand Paul was on with Katie Couric. I'm going to try to play some of this audio before the end of the show because I love that Rand Paul put Katie Couric in her place, and he really did.